Most of us dream of achieving financial freedom, but the harsh reality is that without the right systems in place, it's all too easy to keep making the same money mistakes over and over again. If you're new here, I'm Jason. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a real estate investor. And over the past 15 plus years, being surrounded by the topic of finance, one of the most life-changing skills was I learned how to recognize my own big money mistakes, unlearn them, and break free from repeating them in the future. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 7 of the biggest money mistakes that sabotage your finances and tips on how to break out of them. Let's get into it. Number 1. Keeping your head in the sand. In psychology, there's a term for this, and it's called avoidance coping. It refers to the way people tend to avoid information that they perceive as negative or threatening. And this is particularly a thing when it comes to money and personal finance. They believe that by not acknowledging a certain problem, they can avoid the discomfort associated with it. So for example, someone might avoid talking about a pay raise with their boss or their employer because they don't want to have that uncomfortable conversation, or they fear being said no to, or they might avoid speaking to their partner about their common money goals because they know it always leads to frustration when their priorities and values are so different. Or some people even just ignore bills or expenses because they can't afford to pay it. By avoiding the discomfort that comes with all of this, we might feel momentarily at peace. But all we're doing is delaying the pain and postponing achieving your larger goals. So what you want to do instead is make it difficult for yourself. Make it difficult for you to bury your head in the sand. One effective way to do this is by using something called behavioral nudges. It's a concept I learned from the book Nudge. The idea is to introduce subtle changes in the way choices are presented to you to encourage better decision making without restricting your freedom. So the core idea is to create systems and structures that make it harder for you to ignore important financial responsibilities and decisions. So for instance, setting up an automatic alert for financial activities. So every time your bank account hits a low balance, every time there's an upcoming bill payment, you get an alert so that you are reminded of your financial situation. Another thing is automating your savings and investments that can help you avoid the temptation to ignore these tasks. Behavioral nudges leverage psychology to guide you towards more beneficial behaviors without taking away your autonomy. Number 2, and this one is a huge one that would forever drain your finances as long as you let it, and that is obsessively comparing. We live in this extremely connected world through social media, and this means that you tend to see a lot of what others are up to or a lot of what they have that you don't. This can lead to the popular phrase known as keeping up with the Joneses, which describes a tendency to compare oneself to others and striving to match or exceed the perceived social status and the things that they own. When you obsessively compare yourself to others, you end up spending way beyond your means or making choices based on what others have instead of focusing on what you actually want. You feel compelled to upgrade things like your house or your car or your lifestyle just to match others or to impress others. You want to find something that helps you lessen the desire to keep up with others. And the most impactful way I found for this is by having an ideal end state exercise. Take out a piece of paper and a pen and write down a simple bulletin list of the things you want in your ideal life. It helps to be really detailed and really specific about what your day looks like, who you are around, what you are doing, how you are feeling. Once you do this, each time you buy something, ask yourself if it aligns with your ideal end state list. For example, does buying that new car align with what you really want for yourself? If it doesn't, remind yourself of what you are missing out on. Then redirect your spending, saving, and investing to realign with the list that you've written. Number 3 is not turning your capital quickly enough. A lot of people share their financial situations with me. I noticed that there are so many people sitting on substantial substantial cash reserves of all different levels, and they are just letting it sit in their bank accounts. They are not even saving it for anything specific, and they often say, I've spent so long saving this, it can't go. But you have to switch your mindset, because when you are doing this, when you are just keeping it in a bank account, it's one of the most inefficient use of your financial resources. You are not letting your money circulate fast enough to generate even more money for you, meaning you don't enjoy the benefits of having your money work hard for you after you've worked hard for it. Now, there are short-term and long-term strategies that you can use to turn your capital quickly and make more money for you. The best short-term way I found is by investing in yourself through education and skill development that increase your earning potential. This is one of the most underrated ways, because you become a priceless asset that just earns more. So for example, if you take a video editing course, you can start a side business where you offer this as a service. This then diversifies your income sources, especially if you have a 9-to-5. A good longer-term way would be investing in the index funds. I talk about this a lot, that track the S&P 500 or the Global World Index, which historically have provided far higher returns than just a regular savings account. This can help your money work harder for you, potentially leading to better financial growth compared to just leaving your funds in a low-interest savings account. When you don't actively manage and deploy your hard-earned capital to maximize returns, you lose out on making so much more. Number 4 is not assigning an hourly rate for yourself. The hourly rate refers to the value of your time. It's the amount of money you can earn per hour for the work that you do. This is a really important concept because it helps you understand how to best allocate your time and maximize your earnings. According to Navarrete, your hourly rate is, say, $100 per hour. Then any task you perform that you don't enjoy doing that is valued at a lower rate, then that $100 per hour, say it's $15 or $3 per hour, for example, that should be outsourced or delegated, because time is a finite resource. You only have 24 hours in a day, and you don't want to spend that time as productively as possible on highly leveraged activities that align with your original per hour rate. It's not necessary that it needs to be spent on higher leverage activities. It can also just mean that you have more time to rest and to re-energize so that the time that you are working is more productive. So take a look at your daily tasks, both at work and at home. What are the lower value tasks that you could potentially outsource or delegate? For instance, if you have an identified job, how much could you save by outsourcing your household chores like cleaning, cooking, or laundry? How could you then use that freed up time more effectively? Knowing your hourly rate and identifying lower value tasks helps you optimize your time and maximize your earnings number. Number 5, not living on the 90% we have, something called the 1 coin, 9 coin strategy, which is a concept that is written in the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. Essentially, it's about learning to live on 90% of your income. So training your mind to find ways to only live on that 90%, that you can put the remaining 10% into savings or investments. If you're not saving or investing a portion of your take-home pay, you're going to really find it hard to break out of a cycle. If you're always spending everything or close to everything that you make, you'll always need to work for more, and you end up never having your money work for you passively through compound interest. If you are struggling to find a way to save and invest that first 10%, a couple of things that are really helpful is firstly by paying off any high interest rate debt. I know this may not make sense at first, but paying off high interest rate debt first frees you up to save more towards your goals. The second way is to automate your savings and investing whenever possible. For example, you can set up automatic transfers monthly or weekly from your main account to a simple high interest savings account at minimum. That makes the whole idea and the friction of saving and investing kind of disappear. It's the set it and forget it strategy. The third way is planning for large expenses. So having large expenses like car registration, holidays, and whatnot, they will sneak up on you and really drain your savings or completely derail your budget. But by planning ahead and breaking down these big goals into monthly saving goals can help you avoid this. Number 6, focusing on cutting back instead of making more according to behavioral economics. What is this? People tend to experience loss more intensively than the equivalent gain, and this is a concept known as loss aversion. So it might lead to people focusing on cutting spending to avoid the pain of financial loss, rather than taking risks to increase their income, even if the latter could result in a better financial outcome. Now, there's definitely a place for saving and for scaling back on your expenses, especially if they are big life goals like a house, a car, a wedding, or even your kids' education. But the problem here is when you're focused on cutting back on the smaller items and the pennies that you lose, focus on mining for the gold. If you think about it, cutting out daily lattes might save you $100 a month, but negotiating a $5,000 annual raise, it's like saving 50 months worth of lattes in one go. There is a ceiling for how much you can save, but the ceiling for how much you can make is way higher. Number 7. Not tracking your expenses. This is like driving a car without a fuel gauge. You never know how much you've used up, or if it'll be enough to get where you need to go. Not knowing how much you are spending or where it's going leads to overspending. It leads to running out of money. It leads to so much financial stress. This makes it so much harder to save, to invest, to pay off debt, to reach your financial goals. So a good place you can start is by tracking your spending just to see where your money goes each month. Based on this information and your short-term and long-term saving goals, create a budget that includes all of your income sources and expenses. Then look for areas where you can redirect your spending towards savings, towards investing, towards debt payoff. If you need help tracking, there's plenty of free apps you can download and play with directly on your phone. Puts all your spending into fixed costs. Make this a priority. These are all your essential living costs, your future costs, your savings, your investments, also your fun or entertainment costs. So those are 7 of the most common money mistakes that sabotage people's finances and how to break out of them. I'm here to help you learn, grow, and become the best version of yourself. If you enjoyed this video, there's another great one right here. Like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next one.